Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video. So, I work at the Luxembourg Museum, and when my niece told me that her school this year is considering the Roots and Leaves Museum as one of the options for a field trip, I decided to volunteer to be a chaperone. I talked to the principal and convinced him that the museum would be a great choice. And as an employee, I'll not only be able to chaperone the kids, but also be in a perfect position to answer any questions they have. When my niece told me they got confirmation about the museum being their field trip destination, I was just as happy as her. I also worked as a mediator between the school and the staff of the museum and helped with all the arrangements necessary for children's safety and to make sure they get both knowledge and fun out of it. So on the day of the trip, we were all going through the museum, and I was happy to see that at least a bunch of kids were actually interested to know about everything that we came across. Of course, the rest of them were busy bickering and recreating memes. I saw my niece, and she was part of the latter group. I tried to grab their attention, but it was futile. Finally, when it was time to rest a little and some refreshments, we handed out the lunch packs we created in advance. All the kids were seated in groups, and I noticed a single girl sitting away from the whole class. I wondered if everything was okay with her and asked the other two chaperones to cover for me a little while I checked on her. When I asked her why she was eating alone, she didn't say anything. I knew teens are frustrating at times, and it's hard for them to open up. So I sat beside her in the hopes that maybe she'd talk if I stayed. We ate in silence while she kept taking peeks at me. She must have decided to trust me because after some time, she finally told me what was going on with her. She said that she doesn't have any friends anymore. She had a friend group, but something happened last week. When I encouraged her to continue, she said that both her and a friend of hers had a crush on the same guy. About a few weeks ago, her friend caught her staring at the guy during gym class and confronted her about her feelings. Of course, it was her friend, so she told her everything. She asked her to keep it a secret, but the girl also liked the same guy. At that time, she didn't know about this. But then a week ago, the girl made fun of her in front of the whole class. She was again staring at the guy when this friend of hers suddenly got out of her chair and went over to the guy. The friend pointed at her in front of the whole class and told the guy that she's been drooling like a dog because she had a crush on you and maybe he should ask her out. Of course, it was the wrong move because the guy was popular for being shy and he actually turned around and left the classroom. After that, everyone made fun of her, and when she asked her friend why she humiliated her like that in front of everyone, her friend said that she was just shooting the shot for her, and now they both know he's not interested in her. She could start moving on. That's when she realized that her friend liked this guy too. Since then, they had stopped hanging out, and she's too embarrassed to interact with anyone in the class. It was a silly teenage problem, and I knew in front of the real world it was nothing to cry over. But I understand how difficult those years could be for a teenager that's just trying to fit in, and instead of telling her to move on or look at it as a joke, I asked her what she was going to do now. She smiled a little and told me that she has a plan. Her friend's birthday is coming up next month, and she's planning to make up with her so she can go to her party. Of course, most of their friends will be there, and the girl will definitely invite the guy over because she likes him. That's when she's going to take her revenge. She's planning to get her friend completely drunk. I asked her, wouldn't that be illegal considering they're only 17? And she just gave me an annoyed look, saying everyone drinks before being legal. I decided to let that point drop for the time being in view of her actually opening up to me. Then she continued telling me how every time her friend drinks, she becomes a totally different person and starts acting weird. She danced like a monkey and would start laughing at her own body movements. Everything and every comment somehow becomes 10 times funnier for her, and she has a habit of kneeling over or tripping over her own 2 feet while laughing. So when the friend gets completely wasted on her birthday, she's going to take her to the guy and ask her to keep an eye on her because she'd be too drunk to tell a Paul apart from a human. Then the friend would end up embarrassing herself in front of the guy she likes and everyone else present there. She'd finally have the taste of her own medicine. While she was talking about it, something clicked in my mind. I asked her when it was her friend's birthday, and she told me it's March 6th. And it hit me. That friend is none other than my niece. My niece's birthday is on March 6th. But just to confirm, I asked her the name, and when she said Layla, I wasn't even surprised. That's my niece. Now, I just found out about a girl planning to take revenge on my niece by completely humiliating her, possibly to the point where Layla could suffer emotional damage. But I didn't want to tell her anything or warn her in advance. I actually wanted to tell the girl good luck because I already knew how big of a POS my niece could be sometimes. She acts all high and mighty and parades around her parents' house talking back to everyone like she's the queen of this world. Of course, she gets a pass for her genuinely bitchy behavior because she's just a child, but I knew she deserved something that would teach her a little humility. So AITA here for rooting for this complete teenager that I talked to for 30 minutes because I hate my niece and her arrogance. Update 1. I know a lot of you are calling me an a-hole in the comments, so I'm going to give you details of some of the things my niece does. One time, on her birthday, the cake couldn't be delivered because the shop that was baking it had a kitchen fire caused by one of their electrical appliances, and they had to cancel all orders. It was very late at night, and even though we tried to get another cake, we couldn't really find one. So we had to substitute it with a pie, and my niece threw a temper tantrum and refused to come out of her room until it was time for her to go out with her friends. And this was when she was 13, so it's not like she was someone without brains. Another time, when her parents had to go out of the state for 2 days, they left her with me. At that time, I was a college student and lived in a very small rental apartment. I rarely had enough funds left to feed myself, and all I had left was some baked beans, salad, and enough money to buy one pizza. When I asked Layla what she wanted to eat from the two things, she said that her parents would never feed her peasant food and insisted that she wanted chicken. Her parents had to leave in an emergency, so they didn't give me any cash for babysitting at that time. I knew they were going to pay me when they came back, but the mere fact that a 13-year-old is refusing to eat pizza was infuriating. I mean, which kid doesn't like that? Now, I don't exactly hate my niece, but she sure as hell needs to learn a little humility, and her parents are never going to teach her that. Despite a lot of you saying I should have told my niece about her friend trying to get her drunk so she'd end up humiliating herself, I didn't think she needed to know. If I wanted to prevent the disaster, all I had to do was take away the illegal booze, but I refrained from that. My niece totally deserved what's coming to her, and this was a teaching moment in her life. So her birthday was 2 days ago, and just like her friend planned, she did bring the alcohol. The way Layla's eyes were swollen and red, she must have cried all night. So I guess she ended up humiliating herself. I asked her what happened and why she looked like a complete mess, and instead of telling me about her disastrous party, she snapped at me that a guy should know better than to comment on the girl's appearance. I didn't poke at her again and dropped the subject. After all, I think whatever she went through was enough punishment for her rude behavior. I asked her if she wants to go out with me to grab something to eat in case she needs to hide from anyone, and she gratefully agreed. Of course, food would do that to a person. We went to an arcade and grabbed Chipotle, but she didn't tell me what happened. But nonetheless, I am satisfied after seeing that she has become a little quieter and even said thanks without sounding like a complete ass. So remember my niece and her friend? Well, when I went to my sister's house today, they were hanging out there. I was surprised to see the friend after everything she told me and everything she did to Layla. She also recognized me as the person who chaperoned their field trip, and I told her that Layla is my niece. She was shocked to hear that. She must have remembered our conversation from way back then, and before she could say anything, I asked both of them to help me out with the stuff that's in my car. Layla just said it's beneath her, but her friend gladly helped. When we were outside, she asked me if I had told Layla anything, and I told her that her secrets are safe with me. She started to apologize to me, thinking that I must be angry at her, but I just said that I didn't know at that time who was the girl she was talking about. Thankfully, she didn't remember that she told me the name of her friend. Before she could bring up the topic again, I also told her that I don't want to know whatever happened between her and Layla and that their friendship is something they need to work on and I don't want to be involved. Then I came back into the house. After that, we didn't talk at all and she left pretty soon. I hope that this chapter would end here and she's moved on from it all. YTA. Oh my God, you're the kind of person who misguides the teenagers and uses their emotions to manipulate them. You're completely the a-hole. You should have told the girl to stop trying to get back at Layla and accept herself and make genuine friends, but you just left her alone to make more mistakes. YTA, the girl sure is someone who could learn about how to move on and not be mean, but what I can't believe is that you, as an adult, would promote toxicity and bad behavior amongst teens. That's just horrifying, and you don't even deserve to chaperone your own kid, let alone a whole class. I, 27, female, have a younger sister, 20, female. We did not have good parents. They parentified me from the time I was 8 years old, and it only got worse. My parents were emotionally and physically unavailable to both of us most of our lives, and because I was so young and because my sister was so needy for me, it created a toxic relationship between us. She reached a point of selfishness over me. She expected me to have no life of my own. She got mad at me when I got a job after I left school so we could both have better, but because I wouldn't be walking her home from school and there with her in the hours after school. She wanted me all the time. A few times she even faked being sick to keep me from going to work because she wanted me to lose my job. It was not good for either of us. I think at some point around 7 years ago, I stopped loving her. She felt like a burden. I couldn't be what she wanted me to be. She wanted someone who knew everything, who loved her and wanted to dedicate my life to her. She also wanted someone who would do what she wanted. That was not me. I ended up moving out. I would send money for her, but I rarely visited because when I was there, she wanted me to cook her food, wanted me to buy her nicer clothes, wanted an Xbox, makeup, and all kinds of stuff. From the second I would get there until the second I drove off, she'd be asking for more and more. She was a kid, and I understand that better now. But honestly, I wasn't in the place to raise a kid. Fast forward to last year. She told me she had gone to college, that our parents had given her the money to go, and how she wanted me to visit her and bring her stuff to fill her dorm room with. I asked her if she was serious. She told me it was my job to make sure she was able to land on her feet. I brought her some stuff, but it wasn't enough. We fought. She wrote me out a list of stuff she wanted. I ignored it. She left the dorm and moved into an apartment with friends. About 2 months ago, they were told they would be kicked out because they were way behind on rent and couldn't promise it would be paid. She called me for help. She asked me to help her pay. She told me she needed me to bail her out. I said no. She called and left several voice messages asking for my help with it, but I didn't give it to her. I didn't want to be on the hook for her. I got a call a week ago saying she was now homeless and it was all my fault. She told me I should have helped. I should not have ignored her calls for help. She called me a bitch and a useless mother. I'm expecting a baby with my husband. I told her I wasn't a mother yet. She told me I became a mother when she was born and I owed her better. I feel bad. I also feel torn. So AITA? NTA, the only eight H's in this situation are your parents. They have allowed your sister to not only rely on you, but become a person who cannot be independent for anything. You were not her mother. Did she not try and at least reach out to your parents first, or has she pretty much given up on them? I feel bad for both of you, and I hope your sister eventually realizes the unfair position you were put in as a kid. I'm really sorry for what happened to you. It was really unfair. And I'm sorry that what your parents did to your sister left her so that she is weirdly insistent on you taking care of her and proving it by buying her things. Even if she was your kid, it wouldn't be your responsibility that she didn't pay rent and got evicted. And it's definitely not when she is your sister. You definitely aren't the a-hole right now, or for the whole situation. In a weird way, I'm not sure your sister is, though she's acting like one. She seems very broken, but you didn't break her. Your parents did. They are the a-holes, and it's not your job to fix her, especially if she thinks she's fine. I, 26 female, am an English and journalism teacher at a high school. I was hired last year, and this year I've been given a journalism class. To preface, I wasn't told I was going to have this yearbook journalism class until the first day of school. I was tasked with recruiting, building the curriculum, doing weekly newscasts, and creating the yearbook. I was shocked and a little excited because I enjoy doing these creative things anyways. I had been a part of both classes in high school and college, but my principal said that she's known for a while and meant to text me over the break, but forgot. So I was thrown headfirst into learning ninth grade curriculum and having to plan for a year's worth of journalism classes that I could have been doing over the break. I'm flexible, I can do this, even though it causes me anxiety. Later on, we get our students and they begin working on the yearbook. I take a 2-week vacation during which they did everything to prep for the yearbook. And I come back ready to hit the ground running. During that time, my principal comes to tell me she wants the yearbook class to do a weekly newsletter on top of the newscast, yearbook photos, and other curricula that requires grades. I say, all right, and put the idea to task. Another thing to fit into a 47-minute class weekly. Now, to the incident. A few days ago, a student in my journalism class came to me in a panic. She told me that the principal talked to her about doing a promotional video for the canned food drive and wanted the class to be in it. She added that the principal wanted them to film it and put it in the news. The student said the principal told her she was in contact with me about it. I looked at my email and phone, no communication. I told her not to worry and sent the student on her way, but began to feel frustrated. Today, the principal throws the door open in my classroom and says, I need your kids for a promo. They'll film it for the announcements. I looked at her and frowned a little. Then she said, I'm going to use your students. I said, no. She said, yes. Then I asked her to step out into the hallway so we could talk about communication and timelines and how I can't do everything last minute. She said, I need you to be flexible, over and over again. Finally, someone called her on the radio. She got huffy and told me that I wasted so much time being inflexible that she would have to find someone else to do it. I said, that's okay, and she stormed off. My kids were glad I said no because they didn't want to do it, but I felt like an a-hole for doing it right then. AITA for putting my foot down like this, or should I have done it differently and need to apologize? NTA. My wife is a teacher. I think you better contact your union rep ASAP so this does not go the wrong direction before you even get the chance to be a great teacher. Good luck. Also, thanks for teaching. It's a tough job. NTA, that principal is unprofessional and shouldn't be in the job if their main concern is using kids as props to make themselves look better. I will be very careful about the way that you treat these people because they get into those jobs because they have the wrong connections. It's situations like this where the mask slips.